Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of our video podcast entitled I've Decided to Live 120 Years. Those of you who have been with us on this journey know that we've been meeting some really fascinating people who have been giving us their insights and their personal experience in issues related to many of the topics that have been brought up in Ilchi Lee's incredibly useful book, I've Decided to Live 120 Years. We've been listening to them and learning about the decisions that they have made, about how they are changing their lives, why they made those decisions, and some of the impacts that those changes have had. I have to tell you, I'm really excited about today's show. We have a very special guest with us today. Steve Kim is here to talk to us about a very compelling topic, and that is how we can become engaged to being Earth citizens. There's no more time more valuable and important in human history, I think, than to begin to really grapple with this concept of being Earth citizens. And Steve, who has been a lifelong practitioner of mindful living, he has been a teacher on natural health and a visionary in leading international charitable organizations. Pertinent to our show today, Steve helped establish the Earth Citizens Organization in 2014 and now is its executive director. Steve, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Reed.
Good, thank you so much. I think maybe the best way to begin, Steve, would be to give our audience a sense of what is this concept called being an Earth citizen? What does that mean?
To simply define it, I would say Earth citizens are those who find their primary identity in being part of the Earth instead of being part of any other cultural or national ethnic group. So, and also those who take responsibility for keeping the Earth healthy and peaceful, for not just for ourselves, but for all its inhabitants. I think that's how we can define Earth citizens.
You know, this is a really important and very liberating concept. As you know, in today's world, it seems as if all peoples all around the world are migrating more and more inward to their tribe, to their socio-demographic group. I think you can tell from looking at me that I'm an African-American man and you are a Korean man. And so we can decide, I guess, to hunker down into that definition of ourselves. But what you just said seems to expand that concept in a whole new way.
Right. I usually, to make it more joyfully acceptable, I usually use an example of the space travel. Now it's becoming reality, taking us going out for space travel on a personal level. It's getting. I mean, it can be personal. It can happen in our personal life maybe in 10 years and 20 years. It's already happening. So let's imagine that we are traveling in outer space, and then imagine that you landed on a unknown planet where there lives sentient beings like us. And then when you landed, and they can approach you to find out who you are. And I usually use this example and ask the question: when they come to you to find out who you are, what will be the first question they will ask? And they won't ask your name. They may not have any naming system. They won't ask you how much you make or what kind of deity you believe in. And just common sense, the first question to figure out who you are, the first question I believe they will ask will be, where are you from? Where do you come from? That will be the first question. And when they ask a question, then how would you answer? Or would you say you're currently in Georgia, right?
Yes.
In Atlanta. So would you say I'm from Atlanta, or should I say I'm from Korea? But you know what? There are two Koreas. One is north and one is south, and there's issues about the nuclear weapons. None of these are relevant in that context. The only answer that you can give that makes sense in that context will be, I'm from the Earth. But we can understand that this answer, I'm from the earth, will not only work in that context, wherever you go, or we use lots of pieces of information to describe ourselves, to identify ourselves, but all of these information will begin to lose meaning when we go beyond this boundary. But wherever we go in the entire universe, the fact that I'm from the earth will still valid information. So the way we see it, if you see this, then we may wonder, how can we live our thousands of years in our civilization without understanding this obvious truth that we are from the earth. All other information is just artificial, man-made information. But the fact that we are from the earth is not a man-made. It's obvious, but also universal. That will work everywhere in the universe, wherever we go. So what I'm trying to say is, the fact that we are Earth citizens is not a new definition that we make. It is our natural identity.
Yes.
So,
Oh, it's so beautiful. And as you say, I mean, I'm just enjoying now the enthusiasm of of using this concept to break down these tribal barriers that divide people from each other, that keep us from knowing each other, from communicating to each other. When I look at you and realize that we are citizens of the same earth, all of a
sure.
sudden, all of those differences that we bring to bear melt away. And now I can focus on how we are joined together as common brothers. I love this idea. So terrific. Well, let me just ask you about yourself a little bit. Since I assume that were you born in Korea, and if you were, what was your upbringing like?
I was born in a small town in Korea, of course, South Korea, and I was it is a small town. It's very, I spent my childhood in a very close connection with nature. I think it's not about the developing my connection with nature. I didn't attain it through education, but it comes from my childhood experience, just living in nature environment and then being part of it. And I when I go to the college, I went to Seoul, the capital city of the Korea, and most of the education was in big city. But in that, even in the big city, because of my connection with nature environment, I always wanted to do something
Ah,
about nature, about the earth, and also wanted to spend my time, my life that can benefit not just me, but
I
uh,
see.
all people, all life forms. So that's what
Oh,
that means I was seeking some way to use my time and energy for some meaningful goal that benefit all.
yeah, that's beautiful. Were you raised in a household that was spiritual, or is this spiritual journey that you are now on? Is that something that's new for you?
Yes, but it's part of the Korean culture, and I believe Koreans are very open to all kinds of spiritual tradition and all kinds of religion. Some people, as a kind of joke, people say Korea is a department store for all religions. So it's really all kinds of religions are there. So it's so natural to be exposed to the kind of spiritual aspect in our daily life, but also, for example. I'm not sure you heard about the heaven, earth, and human, the three elements uh, of the unity, and that kind of the understanding is part of our culture. So without
Yes.
having any serious spiritual discipline, anybody who live in that culture is exposed to that kind of understanding, the harmony between heaven, earth, and human. And so that's kind of the general environment that I grew up in.
Very, very fortunate you were to be raised like that. Um, One of the key concepts in Ilchi Lee's book is I've decided to live 120 years is the word decided. How we make the choices to what to do with our lives and how we want to live our lives. You described that as you were growing up, you were fascinated by the nature around you, and you have this sense of a harmonious relationship between mind, body, and spirit. But how did you make the decision to make this work your life's mission? What was that choice about?
Uh, I was seeking, but I didn't see the practical ways to achieve that goal. But when it is through my personal meeting with Ilji Lee, the founder of the Brain Education and Earth Citizen movement. I believe it was in 1997. And then in the meeting, he talked about his vision and what he has been doing, and but not just the actual content of the conversation, but I felt his seriousness, commitment toward the vision, but also in a very, very warm and loving energy. I think that it's much more than just intellectual understanding about the goal and vision. Actually, the energy touches something inside me. So I decided to work for the vision and 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 spend my life to this goal. So that's how I decided to join. And after that, it's 1997, and since then, I moved to US and started working, promoting the mindfulness practices and also the movement for already like 20 years. So that's how
Wow.
I've been part of this and then continue to work for this vision.
Well, one of the things that many in our audience will benefit from is not only the fact that you chose to do what you're doing, you made a conscious decision to change your life and to do this work. But then there are those of us who, once we make these decisions, it's after a while, it's kind of hard to stick to it. Now, you've been doing this for a long time. What do you think the keys are that have sustained your effort over time beyond the initial commitment?
Uh, I think even though no matter how good, how great the goal is, if you don't see a fulfillment on a personal level, the conviction that I'm moving toward my goal, actually I'm growing, expanding myself, then it will be really difficult to stay on the track, on the path. So I think every moment while I'm working on this, every single moment of my whole life was very fulfilling. And I think that's the most important thing: finding the meaning and value of my time and my effort in everything that I do, and then uh, see the hope and the possibility growing bigger, and also not only seeing the changes in my personal life, but seeing the same changes in other people and helping each other. I think uh, those are the source of energy that kept me on this path for more than 20 years.
This you are such an inspiring example, and I hope that everyone is getting that from you. That again, it's important to make the choice, folks. It's important that we dive into the pool. That takes a decision, and then once we dive in, we got to keep swimming, and usually the race is very long, so we have to sustain ourselves. So I imagine, by the way, that you must be combining your commitment and your hard work with maintaining your physical energy as you do this work. I have to assume that you must do a lot of physical training and mental training. Is that a correct assumption?
Uh, the one of the essential the component of the practice that we are promoting or that we are doing is the connection between oneself. And then it starts from, we may talk about spirit or soul, but I think it's much easier to connect with your body first because it's already there. And also it's very important to another reason why it is so important is when we talk about mindfulness, it starts from our minds can go anywhere, but our body should be, and it doesn't have no other space and time. It should be here and now. So we define mindfulness as fully present in body and mind together. So that means the surest way to do it is bringing our attention, bringing our mind back to our body. So that's how it start bringing our attention back to our body, fully present in present moment. And so what I'm trying to say is there's a physical component in the training and practice, but it's not for just developing your muscles or bones. It's about being present fully as a whole being, body, mind, and spirit together in the present moment. That's why we start taking care of, we start paying attention to our body and what our body can do. And also another way of seeing the body is seeing it as a vehicle that you need to carry, that you need to use to fulfill your goal and your mission. And so that's the position and then perspective that we see, that we have toward our body. So it's, yes, there's a physical training, but it's not for just developing muscles or bones or just removing some disease from our body. It's more than, it's more integrated, more holistic,
Yes.
aligned toward our goals and mission.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well, as I think about the environment and the earth, I, like so many people in this audience, are so saddened by what's happening to the planet. Just the other day, I read just an incredibly sad headline that talked about a whale that had washed up on shore that had 88 pounds of plastic in its stomach and in digestive system, and that's what killed it. 88 pounds of plastic. I live in a nation where right now our political leaders are trying to turn back action to deal responsibly with the environment. From your perspective, have we reached a point where this is now a real crisis for the world?
The knowledge and information that I have about the current environmental crisis of the earth is not more than what average people has. So I'm not an expert in environmental science or don't have any professional information about that situation. But even just from this common sense understanding, the example of the whale has the 80 you say 80 pounds. I saw the story, but I didn't remember the exact amount of plastic in it.
But yeah, 88 pounds of plastic. Wow.
Right. And also another very touching the story was about the plastic straw in a nostril of the baby turtle. And that kind of stories are, people respond to that because it's known, but actually if that kind of stories happens, then what could be already be happening behind what we can see on a public media? I believe if that's the case, that's only one or two cases, but I believe lots of more things it's happening, and so it's just common sense, the understanding about the climate change, and we know that in 2015, the Paris Agreement for climate change,
Yes.
the UN Conference for Climate Change, and all the countries, I believe there's 195 countries, and agreed on that agreement, and then they submitted their pledge to reduce the carbon dioxide emission, greenhouse gas emission, and they submit the plan, and that goal that's our goal was containing the increase of temperature within 1.5 degrees Celsius. Before that, there's a 2.5 degrees Celsius, but they were trying to bring it down to 1.5 degree. But even at that moment, the scientific analysis suggests that their pledges is not strong enough it's far short of to achieve the goal containing the temperature increase 1.5 degrees Celsius, even when all of the countries fulfill their pledges. But as we know that the agreement will become effective, supposed to become effective in 2020. It's only just 1.5 years, but those pledges are not being fulfilled. Then what will happen? So I believe the reason why I'm saying this is when news media pick up the stories like the turtle or whale, we are too much emotionally engaged in then those specific cases. But actually, what I'm trying to say is a much bigger thing is happening behind the scene, and we are not doing anything about that. So
That's key.
yeah, that's I think this the seriousness is not a case of the turtle or whale. The seriousness is there are much bigger problem that we are not paying attention to and that we are not doing anything for. I think that's
Wow.
more serious situation.
So this Earth Citizens movement has a real urgency to it. Let me, as I try to draw more fully our individual relationship to this work, I'm going to read you a quote from the book itself, and see how you react to it. I'm going to divert my eyes from the screen so I can read this. I just think this is a very important quote from Ilchi book. He says that everyone has probably had the experience of being loved and comforted by nature. When we sit in the warm sunshine on a bright spring day or lie on the grass looking at, when we walk a woodland trail listening to bird songs, when we look over the open sea and feel refreshed, these moments we smile and we say to nature, wow, that's so beautiful. Our hearts open up as if we've just met a new friend, an old friend. When we open our hearts, we can hear nature saying to us, have courage, it's all right. You can do it. I love you. These messages are actually voices echoing within us. The nature inside of us has revived. When the nature within and the nature without are connected as one, we can hear its messages. Then we become the true friends of nature. And finally, he says, where can we find another friend like nature with whom we can be completely open? Nature is there beside you, the greatest and most intimate of friends. Nature watches without emotion or judgment and accepts you fully. She is someone with whom you can have a wholehearted communion. How do you react to those thoughts and those words?
Yeah, I uh, those messages really resonate. I can resonate with that message, and then I clearly remember one simple. It's a very powerful statement that I heard from Ilji Lee. It's only 3 words. Uh, he said, "We are nature." I think that's when I heard that. I think that really hit the center and
Yeah.
the core, and because that breaks all the illusion or preconceptions or egocentric understanding about our nature environments. When for most of people, when they say wilderness or nature, that means something, some object outside. We always refer nature like that, something that we have to leave our daily environment to get into, something out there. It's even in a most passive understanding about nature that people even for those who has very caring or friendly position attitude toward the natural environment, the way they see it is something that's out there, very good, harmonious, healthy, that is waiting there to support me, to refresh my energy, something that we have to go away, something that we have to go away from our daily life to enjoy. So I think that's the very limited understanding and the maybe uh, illusory idea about what nature is, and then seeing ourselves not as separate from nature, but understanding that we are
Yes.
nature. I think that's the most important change of perspective. And when we do that, then we don't see inside and outside. We'll see the same thing that we see in the nature. We'll see the same thing inside. That's how, when we see that, then the connection is already there. We are not bringing something from outside into ourselves. We just see the same thing inside us, and we see it ourselves as a nature. I think that's uh, that's I think most important change of perspective, and I think that's the main message that I picked up from what Ilchili wrote about our attitude, our connection, relationship with nature.
I really, really like the way you formulated that because I know from my own experience and journey that I spend a great deal of my time outside. And this notion of the nature within balancing with the nature without. There's this free flowing, that just moves in and out. And when I first experienced that, it was just the greatest sense of awe and wonder. It's like, wow, this is an incredible feeling that I am not separate from, but a
Mhm.
part of. And I think that's clearly the way. The other thing that I would urge everyone in our audience to do, and I think you've really emphasized this, is, and certainly the quote does, spend time outside. Go find the park anywhere near you, any fertile piece of grass, lay down, look at the sky, watch the clouds, and let our dreams and imagination go wild. It's like somehow or another we've gotten so many of us away from that as we sit in our little offices, addicted to these cell phones and these, texting and social media, and we forget all the glory that's outside our window.
Right. I totally agree. And I think that we don't need to go to the real wilderness or or polar area, and we just go anywhere, just a little from our around our daily life environment. There are lots of things that can inspire us to recover the connection with nature.
That's it. I like the use of that word, recover our connection. That's a very, very important way to look at it. Well, one other element of this personal journey that I consider to be very important is as we try to mobilize people to take responsible action for protecting our environment. There was a quote that I really enjoyed from an environmental activist named Gus Spaeth. And this is what Gus has to say. He says, I used to think that the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that 30 years of good science would address these problems. But I was wrong, he says. He says that the top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, apathy, and to deal with these, we need a cultural and spiritual transformation. And he says, we as scientists don't know how to do that. But I think that that's sort of the work that you're doing, isn't it?
I totally agree with what he said, and also when I talk about the eco, and most of the common question that people ask is about the technology or infrastructure or the governmental policies and those things. And whenever I'm asked that question, I usually say the key to changing our current the environmental crisis is not technology, infrastructure, or government policy. It's us. And then we when we recover, it's actually the same thing: the selfishness, greed, and apathy. And then when we overcome those limitations and recover our connection with nature and empathy inside us, that's how we begin to change things and act differently. That's the key to resolving our current crisis. And if we don't care, if we don't have that kindness and caring heart within us, then no matter how much resources that we have, no matter what kind of technology we develop, it's the same. The real situation won't change. So I think I totally agree with him. And then the real key to our current situation is not out there. It's within us, and we are the answer.
So without this sense of nurturing, our sense of empathy, our sense of compassion, our sense of loving, we won't take the steps that are necessary. And then, of course, we have to take those steps. We have to get rid of, as you are underscoring, the sense of acquiring things. It's like it's nice to recycle, but it would be terrible to have to recycle stuff that we didn't need in the first place. So
Sure.
it's like we have to start thinking. And I tell you, the one thing that the whale story really reminded me of is, we have so many people that love to drink, a special water that's in these plastic bottles, and so we just keep buying more and more plastic bottles. We feel like we're doing great by drinking the water, then we discard all this stuff, and then it winds up in the belly of a whale. So I think we have to start thinking about how we act on our impulses to do the right thing. It's first having the impulse to do the right thing, then the knowledge of how to act appropriately. I think that's really what's important.
Sure.
Great. Well, let me understand a little bit more then about the movement that you are taking. So now we've gotten people excited about being Earth citizens. We've gotten people sensitive about the importance of protecting the environment and changing ourselves with our values. Now we've got many in our audience are raring to go. What are some of the things that the audience can do to be supportive of this Earth Citizens movement?
The first and simplest thing that people can do is go to the eco website, earthcitizens.org, and then join, register as an Earth Citizen, and organize a club, Earth Citizen Club, in their community, and taking action, do simple things like the recycling is a good example, or sharing some practice for natural health, becoming able to manage our health in a natural way, not depending on. I know that you healthcare is your area, but being able to manage our health without depending on high-tech, high-cost, high-power healthcare system, I think that's a very important part of the sustainability. And not just on a personal level, but considering the enormous resources or chemicals that we spend for that, for health, doing lots of unhealthy things to take care of our health, that kind of paradox. So overcoming that, being able to maintain our health in a natural way, that's a very important part of the whole change and making the whole system sustainable. So there are simple things. And then who will be against that? Getting healthier naturally, who will be against that? I mean, there might be some people who don't like that idea, but most of people will welcome that change. So that I would suggest that kind of simple things, sharing the simple exercise or just taking a walk and then out to the nature and do something to make it healthier and greener. So there are lots of things and millions of ways to do that. We don't need to jump up to the top serious level, that doing something like on a political level without going up to that level. There are lots of things that we can do, simple things we can do on our daily life. So become Earth Citizen, register, go to the eco website, register as Earth Citizen, and join or create an eco club, Earth Citizen club, and do simple things, and like sharing the natural exercise, simple exercise for natural health, or going out to the nature and enjoy the nature and do something to keep it healthy and greener. So those are the simple things that we can I would suggest to anybody, and keep in order to stay connected. They can come back to the site and find out more updates. And because Earth Citizen movement is not a movement that one organization is leading. Earth Citizen movement is a kind of lifestyle change, a cultural change that everybody should engage. So we are not. It's not, the story is not being made by Earth Citizen organization. We are the people who are making the stories and making the movement to grow and expand.
Let us know, what was the name of the website again? What was the address?
Earth Citizens is a plural, earthcitizens.org.
Very good. Because again, the thing that you've just motivated a lot of people to do is to go to that site, and I want to make sure they can find it. But this is what I think you said that's so motivating. We don't have to, as you said, go to the top of the most complicated, difficult engagements with this movement. We can do little things, simple things, that we don't need to be intimidated by the magnitude of the problem. What can I do as one person, with such a big issue? And what you're telling us is there's a lot that each of us can do as one person, joining with other one person, to eventually we have lots of one persons into a massive movement to do something good. And so I think this is going to inspire people to action.
Yeah, I have an example that I would recommend. For example, organic food. Let's think about organic food. The organic food is the fastest growing segment in food industry, and it's more and more people are buying or consuming organic food. But when we ask the question, what's the reason why you buy organic food? Still, the most common answer is for their health, for their own health. But the change of mindset, buying organic food, not for my health, but for the health of the whole planet.
Oh.
That simple change of mindset, then if you see it that way, then the extra amount that you need to pay to buy the organic food is an investment for the future of the sustainable planet. So willingness to pay that extra amount of money, extra expenses, not just for myself, but for the whole planet, that kind of changes, that kind of, the mindset is, it's not a big investment, it's not a big sacrifice, but that kind of changes will mean a lot. And especially the change of mindset like that, that's the, I think the key of the changes that we need to create in our daily life. So that's just one
Wow.
example.
That's such a good one. And I've never heard anybody say that. So this is, you've taught me something very valuable. Well, as we end our conversation, I wanted to mention that I have been personally aware of some of the one element of the Earth Citizens movement, which is in New Zealand. I was able to go to New Zealand. And I think, again, that the recent tragedy of religious intolerance in New Zealand, of all the places in the world that would have people murdered because of their spiritual faith. Um, of all the places, New Zealand would be the least likely that you would ever think of that. Such a beautiful, peaceful, wonderful country. I was there, and I had a chance to a tree. This tree is so massive. It's 2,000 years old. It's 52 feet wide, and it's called the father of the forest. And I will tell you, sitting under that tree, I tried to tell the tree, my troubles. And the tree looked back at me and said, "Son, I've seen a lot over 2,000 years, and your problems are really very small." It was a wonderful conversation. But you're doing some exciting things in New Zealand. Tell me a little bit about how that is a part of your Earth Citizens movement.
Basically, yeah, I remember the tree. I have been there too. So I know how you felt, and I felt the same way. And what's happening in New Zealand, because I'm not actively involved in the what we are doing in New Zealand, so they might be I may not be provide full answer to your question, but basically what we are doing is developing a learning center, a facility and learning center and community where people can come and learn how to live as an Earth citizen. It's not an intellectual knowledge, but as through hands-on learning, and then learning the basic skills and knowledges and principles they can apply in their personal life. And that's basically what we are doing in New Zealand. But I can give you, because I'm more actively involved in what we are doing in the US. For example, we have the same setting in Arizona. There's an eco-learning center. It has hiking trails and the learning center, the classroom facilities, and especially we have a farm. So, and we use tiny houses for accommodating the participants who come for the training program. So basically, what we teach is, when you come to the eco learning center, you will learn how to build, how to grow, how to heal, how to lead. How to build means how to manage your housing in a sustainable way. And how to grow means how to grow your own food in a natural way. And how to heal means how to take care of your health in a natural way. How to lead is how to work with other people for a common goal, shared goal. I would call this sustainability basics, something that everybody needs to learn before they learn any professional skills or knowledge. Such a basic thing that we have to learn to manage our life in a sustainable way. So that's what we are trying to do at the Eco Learning Center in Arizona, is creating a template that can be replicated and applicable in all the other places around the world. So that's our plan, to expand the educational setting and community in multiple locations around the world. I think New Zealand, what we are doing in New Zealand is one of the major locations to provide this experiential learning opportunities for more people.
Beautiful. Well, as we end up, I want to end where we began. And you started us off, Steve, on this beautiful thought about what an Earth citizen is, and how we can use this concept to break down these divisions between us and get us to be one beautiful, loving human being family. And this is again what Ilchi says about being in that same forest environment. And it's true for any forest environment. And this is what he says. He says that all kinds of trees live together in harmony in this forest. Massive black hoof mushrooms grow at the base of immense pine trees. Huge ferns with luxurious leaves grow in the shade of tall korari trees. And all kinds of mosses find a place in the shade of these ferns. Vines use the solid trunks of other trees as support, growing in symbiosis as if they were one body. The beauty of different organisms living in harmony, accepting and embracing each other is deeply moving. Steve, I embrace you as my brother. Different cultures, different parts of the world, different environments. But I feel like today I have made a friend, and I'm excited. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for inviting. Thank you for giving me a chance to share what we do as an Earth Citizen organization.
Well, terrific. And finally, as we go forward, I want to make sure that you know that we are growing as a family of people in this podcast journey. We love hearing from our audience. We love hearing your questions. And really, we love hearing the topics that you want us to talk about. This is your podcast, and we want to respond to you. So don't forget to send your questions to us and your suggestions. And we'll put up on the screen for you how you can contact us here at I've Decided to Live 120 Years podcast. Also, how you can find more information and other resources. So keep those cards and letters coming. And until we all meet again, have a beautiful and happy, wonderful day, a wonderful life. And let's all try to be our best Earth citizens possible. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you.